Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Black Business Roundtable. I am your host, Doug Blacksher, broadcasting to you live from the city of Diversity, Oakland, California. Black History Month is upon us, and we should recognize a few moments in American history. The majority vote voted, therefore, instilling into power the first African American president in the White House in 2008 and for a second term in 2012. Let's welcome Barack Obama. I bet you guys thought I had him backstage, huh? We broke the political glass ceiling of the executive branch and punched through for yet another momentous occasion. We welcome the 2021 Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, a woman of color. However, the above forementioned positive moment, we have an increasing level of serious issues in education. I briefly touch on a student of color bullying case allegedly with a school in Crane County, Texas, and the school downplaying and ignoring bullying involved elements of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, if some of you can recall, we just broke a story on driving while black in Texas. What the heck is going on in Texas? And these are the ones that we're hearing about. Children are bullying the few students of color, and the administration is not following their own bullying procedures, and in some instances, allegedly participating in the bullying. So let me break it down to your audience. Not only is the kids out of control and have a KKK crew in a public Texas school, but the administration and teachers are in on it too. Shame, shame, shame. And the reason why I'm taking a sidebar to bring this up is because we can't bring CEOs and lawyers and doctors and engineers if they can't get an education. And that starts with schools. So Texas, we're going to keep an eye on this, just like we are with driving while black. There is a mother there that is fighting back, and now the NAACP and the feds are taking action. We will keep you posted, and let's start a hashtag. Stop School Bullying Crane County, Texas, and that's TX 2022. And it's right here on your screen, folks. So if you don't catch it today, watch the show again. But we have to start combating this racial discrimination, and especially with our kids. You can't grow a mind if the kid can't get an education. And Dr. Ashley, can you briefly tell us how much trauma that a black and brown boy or girl, I mean, because every time I think about when I went to school, we did but being called the N word and the stuff, and audience, let me be clear, I've had an opportunity to talk to this lady, and she's coming on the show. Dr. Ashley, can you briefly explain to parents how they could, help the child survive this? Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we want to, commend that parent that is standing up for their child and advocating for their child's well-being. We know that first starts with checking in with your child daily about how things are going. Ask them questions. What went well today? What could have been better? Do you feel safe in your classroom? It's very important. Children get a lot of life lessons at school, peer development, self-esteem. And it's really important for the adults, teachers, administrators, and staff to be held accountable for the power and influence that they have and the responsibility for creating a safe space, not just peer to peer, but also adult to child. And so it can be very traumatic when bullying occurs because it's very isolating, it's very targeted, and because the frontal lobe is not developed until the age of 24, we understand that children have a very hard time understanding how permanent things are or are not. And so, again, especially with social media, the bullying as we knew it previously occurred from 8 to 3:30, 3:45, and at least children would have a break afterwards. That's not the same now. There's social media pages. So bullying can now be 24/7, very detrimental, and be the precursor to depression, and actually for children K through 12, suicide attempts. So it's very serious. So we definitely want to check in with our children and let them know that we're here for them and we will intervene as needed.
Brilliantly said. I couldn't have said it better myself, Dr. Ashley.
Oh,
and
you.
folks out there, when you have a problem driving while Black, kids can't get an education, whether it's California, Texas, Atlanta, Arkansas, Chicago, Illinois, Maryland, or Florida. Let us know. We have a contact down in Texas now, and she's been working wonderfully with this young lady, and it looked like the case is going to come to a successful conclusion with some changes being made. So thank you. As far as sorry for the sidebar, but I can't even imagine being called I went to all Black school, and I can't imagine being called the N-word and teacher. The teacher. Anyway, moving on. We continue to ask for your social media support for Michael Thrash as his next court appearance is April 4th, 2022. Please support this case via your social media and hashtag driving while Black. Michael Thrash, Taylor County, Texas. And it's at the bottom of the screen also. Tag the city of Abilene in Taylor County, Texas, the mayor's office, and I believe we found out the mayor is Black. So definitely tag that mayor. Also, national and local news outlets. Let's make sure we get the word out, Texas, that the United States, and especially us in Oakland, from Oakland, California to Maryland, we are watching you. And we're going to start putting some names out here. So fix it, or you're going to get it. It's going to get wrecked. And last but not least, attach our podcast link from 10/14/2022. That's October 14th, 2021. Excuse me, October 14th, 2021. Listed in today's podcast description online, or see link below on screen, which is, and you can see it right below there. I'm going to keep that up so our audience can write that down. Audience, I have to take a sidebar. I had to see, my mother and I, we saw the obituary for my sister. And so, you don't really, I mean, I know she had passed, but when you see that obituary, it really makes it real. So let's take a moment out to give her 30 seconds and pray for her and for my family, and thank you. All right. Our special thanks to our sponsors. Visit Chef Carter Lewis. Dr. Ashley, can you read that for me, please?
Absolutely. Please visit Soul Slice. Just want to let you know that the website lists that Soul Slice is on a winter break. However, they are open every Friday in February from 6 to 10 p.m. for biscuits and $5 beer, as well as the gospel brunch will be occurring this weekend on Sunday from 12 to 3 p.m. RSVP is required. Spots are filling up quickly, as well for the spring season catering services. Soul Slice is available to cater for Easter, Mother's and Father's Day, and graduation celebration events. Located at 5849 San Pablo Avenue, Oakland, California, 94608. You can access their website by visiting www.soulslice.com, through telephone 510-879-7689. Please tell them that the Black Business Roundtable sent you. Also, another acknowledgement to Magnolia Engineering and Construction for their continued support. And we want to congratulate Magnolia Engineering and Construction's owner, Ms. Tammy Willis, on being a minority women-owned engineering and construction firm. Learn more about the company by visiting its website, www.magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com.
Thank you, Dr. Ashley. Today's show highlights. Tonight, we will discuss the Oakland Unified School Board meeting held earlier this week. In addition, we have a returning guest that has been a force here in the city of Oakland when he was running the city and now as counsel and as an advocate for people of color and Black businesses and Black academics and just Black excellence. Our guests today include our weekly own Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology, Department Chair, and Assistant Professor at Assistant Professor of Psychology at University of the West. Dr. Ashley, thank you for all that you do for this show.
Thank you for having me.
Our next powerhouse guest, and Dr. Ashley, I know you're a powerhouse psychological doctor and in psychology, but we in this point in time in this country where African Americans are taking the brunt of everything, health, lack of health care, lack of housing, homelessness, and specifically lack of economic development and growth. We want to welcome back the Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire, the 46th mayor of Oakland, California, from 1993 to 1999, and fighter of civil rights. Thank you, Honorable Elihu, and we got him within the last 5 or 6 days, and he gracefully pulled his schedule together because he wanted to let our audience know that we are in not just civil rights, but human rights. Dr. Ashley, can you read our next legal expert who's coming on today, our weekly or friend to the show?
Absolutely. So in addition, we will have Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, who she continues to be our social justice warrior, fighting for Oakland one day at a time. And let's congratulate her and her new campaign run for Oakland City Council District 4. And she was born and raised in the East Bay. So catch up with Janani anytime at Centro Legal de la Raza website, www.centrolegal.org, or visit her new website, www.janani4oakland.com, and her new Instagram page handle is at Janani4Oakland.
Audience, I just want to say, today I was contemplating on not coming on, but my mother said, "Boy, you better go to work." I said, "Mother, they don't pay me to do that." "Well, go to the studio, but go do what you have to do. You have to still keep productive." So if I have a little twitching and I'm not apologizing for it, Dr. Ashley. You trained me well. But if you could read the next our political highlights. I'm just enjoying hearing your soothing voice, and I'm looking for my stress stick right now. So
There you go.
thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem. So now for our national political highlights in several elections. We have Brother Marcus Flowers. He's a proud Army veteran, husband, father, and patriot. He's a Georgia Democrat running for Congress to unseat and just out fundraised Marjorie Taylor Greene. Learn more about Mr. Flowers by visiting his Instagram page at Marcus4Georgia or through his website, www.marcusforgeorgia.com. He's also going to be coming on our show later this month. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock is a Democrat, and he helped flip Georgia blue along with Senator Ossoff, is running again for the U.S. Senate. He is a pastor, advocate, Savannah born and raised, and he's a Morehouse man. Learn more about him by visiting his Instagram page at Raphael Warnock or www.warnock4georgia.com. Stacey Abrams is a Democrat who's running to unseat Republican Brian Kemp for governor of Georgia. And to quote Stacey Abrams, opportunity in our state shouldn't be determined by zip code, background, or access to power. Learn more about her campaign through her Instagram page at Stacey Abrams, and that's STACEY Abrams, or by visiting her website, www.stacyeabrams.com. And for the last campaign that we'll highlight, Val Demings, who is a Democrat running for the 2022 Florida Senate seat. And if you'd like to stay updated on Team Demings, text the word JOIN to 77076. This former Orlando police chief is seeking to unseat Republican Little Marco Rubio. Doug, I can never do it the way you can. But Val Demings, again, tagline for her campaign is never tired. And so the election date is November 8th, 2022. Learn more by visiting www.valdemings.com or again, visit the Instagram page at Val Demings.
Soothing voice that our doctor has keeps me going when I would and have laughed. Thank you, Dr. Ashley. Once again, and now the news of the day. Dr. Ashley, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. And first and foremost, I would like to highlight, I have a Black Girl Magic t-shirt on, but I want to highlight an image that I saw before we go into some history that does involve trauma. And on social media, there was a picture of the future Black female physicians at Meharry Medical School. And these sisters were tough, had on their coats, had on their outfits, and I felt like it was such an empowered, uplifting message and image to uphold. So as I'm celebrating Black Girl Magic, I just want to highlight that the Black women at Meharry Medical School, the future doctors, and just again the excitement that that Black people will receive equitable care from doctors that look like them. Okay, so on this day, February 10th, a mob of 2,000 white people lynched a Black man in Brookhaven, Mississippi. And so this occurred in 1908. A mob of over 2,000 white people lynched a Black man named Eli Piggott in Brookhaven, Mississippi. He was accused of assaulting a white woman and was brutally killed before he could be tried in a court of law. During this era, allegations against Black people were rarely subject to scrutiny and often sparked violent reprisals before the judicial system could or would act. So on the morning of February 10th, according to news reports, police deputies and armed military guards transported Mr. Piggott from Jackson to Brookhaven to stand trial. Upon arrival in Brookhaven, the lynch mob scuffled briefly with the military guards before seizing Mr. Piggott, kicking and beating him, and then hanging him from a telephone pole less than 100 yards from the Lincoln County Courthouse. The mob then riddled Mr. Piggott's corpse with bullets as it swung from the pole. The racial hostility that permeated American society during this era burdened Black people with a presumption of guilt that frequently proved deadly. In particular, widespread stereotypes depicting Black men as dangerous, violent, and uncontrollably sexual aggressors led to a racialized state of hypervigilance in which any action by a Black man that could be misinterpreted as seeking or desiring contact with a white woman could result in mob violence. And I want to invite our listeners to tune into, again, this news is courtesy of the Equal Justice Initiative that can be accessed by visiting www.calendar.eji.org. But it's really important to highlight again these stereotypes about Black men that were found in that story. And when we talk about bullying, it's very important for those of us in positions, especially in positions of power, to be honest about the biases that we have because they can be influential in the treatment of others.
Once again, Dr. Ashley, soothing words. And we would want to welcome you back for another piece of soothing. And now for our weekly checkup with our, and I have to keep working on saying my very own, with our very own Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology. Please take it away, Dr. Ashley. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you, Doug. I want to, again, revisit the discussion that we had at the start of the show about bullying and really empower our parents and relatives on information on how they can advocate for their child who may be experiencing bullying. And so the first piece of recommendation or evidence I would say is always to document whatever you can. Again, in many cases, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And unfortunately, while it shouldn't take a lot of documentation to get the eyes and ears and respective parties addressing certain allegations or concerns, we know that without documentation and in many cases representation, nothing moves. So first, if have your child talk to the teacher. If the teacher is the potential culprit, have them go to the principal's office. You want to document that, showing up, going with your child to the principal's office, taking this to the superintendent. So going up the chain, but needing that documentation. Also, I want to talk about something generationally. We know that many of our elders have experienced bullying, racism at the hands of teachers, and have been able to persevere. However, we understand now that trauma numbing, not everyone numbs against trauma. And as one of our speakers said last week, we understand that being resilient can have its cost. So just because you were bullied or faced the N-word or other horrible treatment in school, please don't continue to say, well, if I got through it, my child can get through it too. And it's not about saying that we're running from something or not standing up for someone, but there is something to be said about safety. And so considering moving your child out of that school, I know that's easier said than done. We know that involves, are you in the district or do you have an address or all these other, considerations, but your child is there to learn, and learning cannot take place when a child feels unsafe or when they're hungry. So we want them to be in places where they're being poured into. What is your child internalizing at that school? Are they being seen? Are they being placed in the proper classes? So also consideration of moving your child. And then also from personal experience, I want to be clear, while the parent that raised this issue talked about her Black child, she's going to tell her story, being targeted unfortunately by a Caucasian teacher. This also happens, and this isn't a pivot, but personal story, from Black teachers as well. So I had a teacher in an all-Black school that I loved that had an interaction with me, unfortunately, that was rooted in colorism. and projection on their own things that they were going through. And I am very grateful. I was in the first grade, and I was grateful that my parents listened to me when I said I didn't want to go to school anymore, because I loved school. So pay attention when your children all of a sudden don't want to go to school or don't want to go to a certain class, just inquiring more about what's going on. My parents went to the school, and thankfully they were met by receptive administrators, and that was handled. So asking questions, what's going well, looking for changes in behavior, documenting, advocating, and then removing your child out of that toxic environment when needed.
Also, audience, please, as we did on this show, contact your NAACP local, county, state, and if you don't get a response, go to federal. But we had a outstanding help from the Texas local NAACP to help this lady address the issue, and got the feds involved in it, and the Office of Civil Rights, OCR, they're involved in it. Mm-hmm. So don't sit back as if this was the 1800s. This is the 21st century. And let's stand up and fight and combat racism, especially when it goes for our kids. Mm-hmm. Dr. Ashley, please take it away.
Absolutely. So we want to thank our sponsor, Mr. Donnie Glover of BlackUSA.news. And be sure to tune in to Chap and Friends on Mondays, Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesdays. Again, a special acknowledgement of Magnolia Engineering and Construction. The vision is to further the presence of Black women in the construction and engineering industry through key partnerships and building contracts in the municipal, government, and transportation sectors. And to join our advertisement family, or also to reach out about important issues like the sister did about what's occurring with her child, please send us an email enclosed with details about your company or about the situation and address it to bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Back to you, Doug.
Listeners, we have a treat for you today, and nobody can speak on that menu and say those dandling morsels that are being cooked at Chef Carter's place like our very own Dr. Ashley Coleman. Thank you for watching my back today.
I got you. And boy, is my mouth watering just thinking about the food at Soul Slice and what Chef Carter will, the recipes he'll share with us when he returns. But again, Chef Carter of Soul Slice, this is located 5849 San Pablo Avenue. Let's talk about this delicious menu. So we have black-eyed peas with collard greens and stewed tomatoes on rice, cornmeal fried oysters with garlic, and again, the stewed tomatoes on rice, cornmeal fried chicken with grilled broccoli on rice, oxtail stew on grits. That's gonna be my first go-to. Oxtail stew on grits, baked cheese grits, and then this unique take on pizza. So the crust is handmade, light, thin, a wheat flour crust. And then they have Cajun shrimp, beef hot links, tomato, green onion, pickled peppers, and tomato sauce on a biscuit crust. Now, what do you chase that with? Well, something sweet. So they have apple crisp, peach cobbler pizza, making a mental note of that, sweet potato pie pizza, and cocoa rice pudding. And that's not all. They also have beer, wine, and spirits by Black-owned entrepreneurs. Again, visit soulslice.com. They have biscuits and beer on Friday nights, and then the gospel brunch this weekend, and then are available for your catering events.
Thank you, Dr. Ashley. We appreciate that. And also, I'd like to let the audience know that Chef Carter's grandmother passed away, and he left for a week about 7 to 10 days ago. So we'll be glad to have him back, hopefully next week. But he's making preparations for his grandmother for homegoing. Okay, Dr. Ashley, as always, you brought us back up to speed. We were right on time. Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, fearlessly fighting for Oakland, our social justice warrior, friend of the show, and our very own legal expert and District 4 candidate. Dr. Ashley, please read her bio. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, running for Oakland City Council District 4, Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, attended Stanford University, where she studied political theory, systems of democratic governance, and economic development. Witnessing the injustices her clients faced at the hands of inequitable legal system, she was driven to make a difference as a lawyer and attended Berkeley Law. There, Janani supported tenants, small business owners, and survivors of domestic violence across Oakland.
Well, can you give us an update? Oh, wait a minute, Janani's not on. We'll give her a minute. And yes, Donnie, I have tried those oxtails, and when you come out here, let me be perfectly clear, my brother. I will be taking you here first to get your Oakland Black business restaurant owner who has a unique pizza style and how he serves his soul food. I will be taking you there, Mr. Donnie Glover. Well, Dr. Ashley, since we have a few minutes, let me go into, there are two things I'd like to discuss here until Janani comes on. And the first is the Bart Redistricting. I have had many calls from concerned people in Oakland that the redistricting of the Bart board, and the Bart board will be meeting on February 16th. For those of you who live in Oakland and those of you who are on Oakland, I humbly ask that you go on Bart's website and look at how they are breaking up Oakland because Bart board directors are elected. Elected people. The representatives are elected. And the new redistricting in the Bart train station is designed to where the majority of Black and brown people here in Oakland, they're going to split those votes up to where half of them go up in the hill in Montclair, Piedmont, which is majority white, and really break it up to the point where it could have a significant impact on how the transportation BART station in Oakland are affected. And considering, I believe there's quite a few of our Oakland people who use that BART transportation, it would affect them. But since we have our legal expert on, I'm going to hand the stage back to Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, our legal social justice warrior who fights for Oaklanders every single day. Welcome, Janani.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you, Doug and Dr. Ashley.
Thank you.
Let me ask the first question. If you and how have you been, young lady? How's it going?
I'm doing great. The sun is shining, and that lifts up my mood. There are a lot of reasons right now to not be happy, and I'm thinking specifically the school closures this week, but trying to find light and positivity and hope.
Well, can you give us an update on the February 8th, 2022 school closure, Oakland Unified School District meeting? Because I know I was up to 1:00 in the morning that night, and I think you were up just as late. Go ahead, Janani, please.
It's shameful. You have these Zoom calls with well over 2,000 Oakland families children, parents, staff members. And this isn't a one-off thing. It was the week before. You had another 2,000 plus families, and every single day of the week, there were in-person actions. And 5 school board members out of 7 still decided to make decisions that completely flew in the face of public comment and the best interest of our kids. There is a hunger strike going on. 2 teachers or staff members are still on hunger strike. This is day 9 of their hunger strike. They're suffering medical consequences because they care about what's going on and they want this decision reversed, period.
I was devastated that Mike Hutchison and Van Cedric Williams, black men. Mike Hutchison is born and raised here in Oakland. They were the only 2 audience elected officials who listened to over 2,000 people were on that Zoom conference call. 2,000 people. And what the percentage they gave was 92% of those people were against closing the schools. Is that correct, Janani?
I'd say more than that. It seemed like the school board members, 5 of them, were the only ones for closing the schools on that call.
Well, I'm going to just say this before I ask the next question. Gary G., I need to know how much you were paid, because you have no compassion in your position as president of the Oakland Unified School District, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I looked at how those kids were begging you, and these are kids who are directors on the board. Their job was to participate and let the school board know how this was going to be affecting the kids who now have to go almost 2, 3, 4, 5 miles to get to another school, don't have cars, the money for bus passes, etc. And then I think it was, and I'm going to have the names. If this goes through, I'm going to read those names off every week. Just like I will the Bart board, who's going to be trying to redistricting such that they get the black and brown stations that are predominantly in Oakland inaccessible, or closing up Bart station here in Oakland. Next question. Can you update us on your campaign for District 4 and upcoming events? Thank you, Jana.
Of course. So our campaign is off to a fantastic start. We are currently the only candidates for City Council in District 4, and I would like to keep it that way. Speaking of redistricting, Mike Hutchinson's district for his school board race has changed to District 4 based on where he lives. So he and I will be running together for school board and council respectively, and
Well, you got Doug. I'll have your picture on one side of my truck and his picture on the other side, and I'll go up and down the street. I'm looking forward to that. 2 powerhouse social justice warriors out.
But other than that, things are going really well. Campaigns involve money, so just trying to fundraise as much as possible and be out in the community. Every weekend there are so many park cleanups, litter walks, trash pickups in so many different parts of this district that there are always opportunities to get involved. And I think it's become a ritual at this point. Every Saturday morning I'm out there with some tool of some sorts, picking up trash or weeds or whatnot from different major street intersections and parks, because things look like a mess, and we need to encourage young people to engage in cleaning up their own neighborhoods. And of course, we have to shift the culture too of why people are littering and dumping in the first place. But in the meantime, doing our best to make these streets look clean and beautiful and safe. That's something that my campaign's excited about, and I'm trying to put in the work by showing up as much as I can.
Dr. Ashley?
Yes. Well, before did either one of pose this question? I see Donnie's asking, when are the terms up for the board members?
So half of them are up this year. So this is a signal to everyone listening to encourage people you know, or perhaps you yourself, to run for school board. There are 3 seats up this year, District 2, 4, and 6, just like the council districts. 1, 3, 5, and 7 are up next year, I believe. I could be wrong, but almost every seat's going to be up for re-election soon. Several school board members are stepping down, which is interesting. But this is an opportunity to, do we want to replace those school board members with someone that's going to be a carbon copy of them and their policies and the financial interests that are influencing those decisions? Or do you want to make sure that we're bringing in a new crop of leaders to encourage people of all backgrounds, all ages to run to represent the people? This is a huge window of opportunity. And I know for sure myself, I'm going to be out there supporting any candidate that challenges the current folks in office. And we can reimagine what our school board looks like, what our city council looks like. And this is a really exciting moment.
And then as a follow-up, can the decision be reversed if a new board comes into session?
That I do not know. I am not hopeful because a lot of the things will, a lot of the processes in place will have already begun by then, but never say never. I think the public pressure the unprecedented public pressure that is mounted in support of these schools can and will change the course of history. So we don't know.
Janani, can you tell our audience about Alameda County School Board, and I believe it's the State of California Superintendent Thurman has chimed in. And if you know, can you let our audience know what their thoughts or what you heard that they are saying, so that our audience can look and see how we are allowing 5 elected officials to just come into the Black and brown neighborhood and destroy the kids' inner core by taking away the schools that they're in now. Thank you.
You know, I don't know the details of different people's positions, but I do know that some of these positions are changing, and public pressure is changing the opinions of many of our other electeds. You know, there was pin drop silence from most of our current city council members till a few days ago, when Carol Fife and Rebecca Kaplan had spoken up from the very start of this, had called upon our assembly member Mia Banta to take action. And there, for about a week of actions, there was silence. And then the New York Times started covering this, the San Francisco Chronicle, news stations, CNN, outlets throughout the country started talking about the crowds at these events, the hunger strikes, the thousands of people on these Zoom calls, and then electeds started listening. So in theory, and I hope that these electeds genuinely do follow through with them, including Assemblymember Mia Banta, there are efforts now to try to decouple incentives to OUSD to close schools. Because basically, one of the many reasons behind this, there were tons of reasons behind school closures, including the interests of developers who want the land that these schools are on, including charter schools who want to take over these schools and make a profit off of our kids. There are many reasons, but one of the reasons was $10 million from the state that the state offered OUSD if they adjusted their budget. And Mia Banta did author a resolution to try to attempt to decouple that process, that the incentives, the $10 million, there should be other ways to achieve that goal that doesn't necessarily have to involve school closures.
Oh, go ahead, Deb.
Well, I gotta say this, audience. This young lady here, Janani Ramachandran Esquire, I compliment you because you ran against Mia Bonta and she won. But you are big enough. Some politicians or people who run it walk around, I don't like him. It ain't about winning or losing. It's about fighting for the people. Audience, look at this young lady because we are going to put her in office. I guarantee you, Janani, you are the type of politician that we don't have to worry about. Oh, well, I'm in now, so I'm going to hold a hostage. You gave your opponent kudos, and you don't have to mention her name because, you know how politics, instead of politics, it could be politics. So go ahead, Doctor. I had to point that out.
Yeah.
That is why I want you, audience, we got to get this young lady in. She is a woman of integrity and ethics and for the Democratic Party. Thank you.
Thank you, Janani. As always, we know that you have to run. And it never seems we have enough time with you, even though we take so much time, but we're happy to have you back. But again, audience, to echo what Doug is saying, to learn more about what our social justice warrior is doing for the community, please visit her website, www.jananiforoakland.com, or visit her Instagram page through her handle at Janani4 Oakland, and we look forward to hearing an update from you soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Janani, all I want to say to the audience, because you're leaving a few minutes early, but audience, whether it's in the courtroom or on the court basketball field, cleaning up and making our city better, Janani is always on the court. Have a great one, Janani. Thank you.
Take care.
Well, audience, we have a few minutes to burn here, actually, too, because, our backstage person keeps us right on point. Dr. Ashley, can you give our sponsors a acknowledgement and give Donnie Gullah, and let me tell you something, Donnie, you are building an empire here. The foundation is set to where this blackusa.news and your podcast program is just making a difference all across America and other countries too. Dr. Ashley, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of blackusa.news. And listeners, be sure to tune into Sister Biz with Nicole and Tamara on Wednesdays, and also Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Fridays. Again, RSVP and join Chef Carter Lewis every Friday in February for amazing biscuit sandwiches and $5 ice cold beer at Soul Slice. Also, RSVP for the Gospel Brunch this Sunday, February 13th, located 5849 San Pablo Avenue in the heart of Oakland, California. Find out more information by visiting their website, www.soulslice.com, or calling area code 510-879-7689. Support a local eatery in Oakland and check out their catering services available for your personal or business event. Learn more about Ms. Tammy Lewis, owner of Magnolia Engineering and Construction, by visiting its website, www.magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com. The company wants to be a part of growing with our community of Oakland, California. Connect with Magnolia Engineering and Construction now on all social media platforms. And finally, to join our advertisement family, send an email to us enclosed with your company email and details to bbrt2021@hotmail.com.
Dr. Ashley, we have a treat for our audience today. Now, like I said, I've been a little sad, but audience, I take reporting to you every Thursday seriously. because we need to be informed. When you know something, then you can do something about it. So we're going to take it away with Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire, Mayor of Oakland, California, 1993 to 1999. Dr. Ashley, please read this impeccable, honorable Elihu Harris's bio, please.
Okay, thank you. And so before I read the bio, I think we'll have a few minutes. Just want to check in and acknowledge before I read his bio, again, about self-compassion, taking a moment, being patient with oneself. Doug, thank you. You acknowledged experiencing bereavement. Chef Carter Lewis, we also want to acknowledge the passing of his grandmother as well. And as we hear different things in the news, again, just taking a time out, we see here therapyforblackgirls.com, therapyforblackmen.org, finding and creating safe spaces in your personal life, or talking to a trusted professional where you can unpack feelings and thoughts and just receive the support in a different way. So just want to make that plug again, because it's Black History Month, as we know, and but it's very important for our needs to be addressed. And we're living Black history as well. And while we may demand excellence from ourselves, we also deserve health and good holistic health.
Dr. Ashley, you know I am the poster boy for psychology and therapy. Audience, take it from a man who has, in the past, have said some terrible things about Dr. Ashley, don't take this personal, but about doctors of psychology. Now, they say when you know better, you do better. I know better and I do better, and I'm asking you, audience, and my dad used to say that, when you know better, you do better. His birthday's coming up February 15th, by the way. So I think that everything when I was growing up used to ring in my head about, Doug, do this, Doug, do that, do your best. But I do recall him saying, when you know better, you do better. Audience, learn, know, so we can do better. Thank you.
So it's time. I'll read the bio so that we can bring our guest out. Again, the Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire, earned his Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Cal State University of Hayward, earned a Master of Public Policy from University of Berkeley, Cal Berkeley in 1969, and his JD from University of California, Davis School of Law in 1972. He is also a member of the esteemed fraternity of Kappa Alpha Psi. Mr. Harris served as the mayor of Oakland from 1991 through 1999, has an office building named after him, the Elihu M. Harris State Office Building in downtown Oakland, California as well. And it is our pleasure to welcome Honorable Mr. Elihu Harris back to this show.
Thank you very much. How's it going?
Oh, well, glad to have you back.
I'm happy to be here. Hey, let me tell you one thing. Since it's the Business Roundtable, let me tell you something. Get your name on the title, not the building.
On the title, not the building. You know,
I don't collect no rent down there. I wish I did.
You know, Dr. Ashley, one thing when Honorable Elihu Harris comes on the show, I know I'm going to be smiling when we wrap up at the end of the show, because what you bring, Honorable Elihu Harris, is knowledge and wisdom and the ability. It's unfortunate back then our people couldn't see it, but the ability to articulate what is going on here in Oakland. Welcome back, sir.
I appreciate it. Well, there's a lot going on, that's for sure.
Well, is it true your dive into politics began as legislative assistant to Yvonne Brathwaite Burke, whom eventually became the first African American woman elected to California Assembly, and what is the full historic significance of her serving in this position in 1966? Thank you, sir.
All right. First of all, no. I first worked for Assemblyman John Miller as his administrative assistant. He working out of Oakland. And then I went to Washington to work for Yvonne. Now, you asked about Yvonne. Yvonne is not only the first assembly, a black member of the assembly who was a female, she also was the first woman to have a baby while in Congress. She was also the first black member of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, male or female. If you don't know anything about Los Angeles, probably one of the most powerful political positions in the country, probably as powerful, if not more, than a member of the U.S. Senate, because each of those districts represent over 2 million people. So Yvonne is the real deal.
Honorable Harris, you were elected to the Assembly in 1978. Can you share, since it is Black History Month, one of the civil rights issues you focused on during your 12 years of service? And thank you for your service.
Well, first of all, all of us are continuations of legacies. You mentioned your dad. When I got to the legislature, there were 8 black members of the legislature, 6 in the Assembly and 2 in the Senate. Prior to that, there'd only been about 5 black legislators before any of those got elected. I got in Fred Roberts, who's a Republican out of Los Angeles, Gus Hawkins, who later went to Congress, Merv Dymling. I think, and that might have been it. There may have been 1 or 2 more, but pretty much there were no blacks elected to the legislature other than Gus and Byron Rumford and Fred Roberts until 1964 when Willie Brown got elected.
Dr. Ashley?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So 1981 was a pivotal year.
Yes.
And you wrote some very important legislation as an assembly member that many are not aware of that affected all Californians, which involved the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Can you share with our audience more information about the piece of legislation that is forever tied to your efforts?
Well, some students at Oakland Tech, they call themselves the Apollo class, came to Sacramento and said, we have a dream like Dr. King had a dream. We want to have a state holiday in honor of Dr. King's birthday. And that was before there was a federal holiday. And quite frankly, there was great resistance to that idea. And I can tell you one of the worst examples of that, and I'm not going to use the whole word because some people are offended by it, but it's actually what was said. I'm not voting for a holiday for an end, because then they'll want a holiday for a Mexican. But it passed, and we got the holiday, and we're still celebrating it. Now it's a national holiday as well. What bothers me is not that we have the holiday, is that people don't see it for what it is, which is the day for recommitment to the legacy of Dr. King. A lot of people just see it as a day off. That wasn't the purpose. It was a day to honor the legacy, volunteer, get involved, and try to do something to move forward, both as a race and in terms of social justice, equal opportunity, and all the things that Dr. King fought for.
As a follow-up, I'm just curious because you're absolutely right. Some people don't observe the holiday as an opportunity for service. For those of us in Oakland, how can we use this day to truly be impactful in the community?
Well, if we started off in Oakland, we used to have a Martin Luther King march. It was out in East Oakland. It was up and down Hagenberger. And it started at Eastmont Mall, went south, ended up at what is now Martin Luther King Park near Doolittle Drive, right close to the airport. And then we would listen to speakers. We would remember what the struggle for justice and equality was all about and be inspired, if not empowered, to get out and keep the dream alive, and more importantly, to make the dream come true. And quite frankly, there are many of us have either given up or certainly no longer see ourselves as allies in a common struggle, or we've lost a sense of a coalition with brown people and yellow people quite often. And, it's just like, where's the community? Martin Luther King had a great quote: where do we go from here, chaos or community? I think we've descended into chaos.
This is one of the most intriguing conversations that I have had with an accomplished civil rights person. And I want to thank you for enlightening me on these great things that you have done, and so that our audience knows that we aren't doing enough. We're sitting back, we're complacent. Some people are thinking that instead of we shall overcome, we have overcame, and we are being overcome.
Well, look, we had 60,000 children in the Oakland Unified School District in 1997. We're down to 36,000. Some of them left through gentrification. Some of them went to private schools and charter schools. Some of them just aren't in the educational system anywhere. In an age where technology and education is critical to success, that's moving backwards. That's not moving forward.
Well, you mentioned tech, and I believe you know Mr. Robert L. Harris.
Yes, one of the proud graduates of Oakland High School.
Well, this audience, I don't know if you know about this, but if you know, Honorable Elihu Harris, Mr. Harris was denied the opportunity. Yes. Can you tell this audience what you know? And since it's Black History Month and my father's birthday is in 5 days, what a gentleman by the name of Artis Blacksher Jr. do to make sure Mr. Robert L. Harris got a fair education opportunity instead of being a carpenter for a carpenter union that don't really like Black people? Thank you.
But as you know, your uncle moved here from Arkansas, and they thought everybody in Arkansas just picked cotton. But he was a very bright young man. And when he got to California, your mother and your dad enrolled him at Oakland Technical High School because he was a high school student who could not get what he believed was his dream realized in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. So when he got to California, he went to Oakland Tech, and they immediately said, you're not well enough educated to go to college prep classes. They signed him up for every recidivism, every low-ranked education program, nothing academic, nothing that would prepare him for college. And you know better than I, your dad went down there, met with a counselor who had refused to put him in an academic program and said, sign him up for the right classes. And they said, no, he's not signing him up for the right classes. I don't know if your mama went down there, but if she went down there, they signed him up for the right classes. And the rest is history. He went on to Oakland City College, San Francisco State, University of California at Berkeley, where he got his law degree, where he went on to become one of the highest ranking Blacks in the history of Pacific Gas and Electric or anywhere in Black corporate America until his retirement. And more importantly for me, he always gave back. He always stayed involved in the community. He always stayed involved in civil rights. President of the National Bar Association, national president of the Kappas, every national president of the Boule. And he never lost his head. He never let his ego get in the way of his humility. And he always tried to be relevant, and he always tried to be of service. That's a model for all of us to follow. And he never forgot what your father and your mother did for him in sparking that opportunity to get out of Arkadelphia. Arkansas's theme is Arkansas is the land of opportunity. I say the opportunity in Arkansas is to get up and get out, and that's what Robert did.
You and Mr. Robert L. Harris are powerhouse attorney in your respective professions. I would like to, our audience, which spans from Oakland, California to New York, and from my understanding, a couple of countries I found out through some of our email. Can you explain to our audience how important it is that, first off, how you and he met and motivated each other to motivate each other? First. Second, how you guys have stayed in touch for over 50, and I hate to give your age up because I know you're only 35, but we're going to say 50 years. And that relationship, because once again, I believe we talked about it last show, you took over a city when the hills burned down back in 1993, and I'm talking about
1991. I became mayor in 1991, and the hills burned down in 1991. And Oakland.
And Mr. Harris, they made him manager of the city of Oakland, in charge of getting all those multi-million-dollar, and that was back then, they were multi-million-dollar homes.
Right.
How was your collaboration based on your relationship so successful in being one of the few power and electric companies and a mayor that united together, not only as friends, but as business and taking care of the constituents for the city of Oakland? Because I used to drive up there and say, it was a magnificent feat. You allowed the city of Oakland permits and building officers to work with PG&E to get those people back in, but it took a collaboration. Can you explain to our audience how important it is to start now with us networking and collaborating, and how it worked for you then?
I have a basic philosophy. All we have is each other. Nobody cares about us if we don't care about each other. And quite frankly, a network. You want to be part of a social, political, and economic network. People who will pool resources, who come together both in times of need, times of emergency, and just in times of calm. And we used to have black banks, savings and loans, insurance companies. We would always understand that between the churches and others, we would be able to come together and meet any challenge. Sometimes it would take a long time. Sometimes it would take unfortunate incidents, but always with a sense of community. We got to make sure we maintain that. So for me, part of it, you mentioned Bob Harris. I was an undergraduate. He was the graduate advisor when I pledged in the fraternity. But as a result of that, John Burris was my law partner. He was also in the fraternity. I could go on with the people that I knew then, some in other fraternities, some just community activists. But we never lost focus that we were all in it together. We didn't let fraternal bonds or church bonds or economic bonds divide us as a community or as a people. We got to get back to that. We don't have the luxury of division. We're only 6% of the population in California, but only by working together can we make a change. Only by forming coalitions with Latinos and Asians and progressive whites can we fight out what's going on in the rest of the country. Right now, you leave California, you better fly low, because there's all kind of people out there trying to make sure you don't get to the East Coast. So I'm just telling you, it is a whole new day. And Donald Trump has exposed the underbelly and the scar that is this country. This country got a lot of good things going for it, but racism and white supremacy is alive and well. And if you don't believe it, look at what happened in Germany before World War II and what happened to the Jews. Don't think it can happen to somebody else.
Dr. Ashley, can you take that question on the screen and phrase it to where, what does our Honorable Elihu Harris think about that and the mental fortitude?
So Honorable Elihu Harris, earlier we talked about two stories. So one story is about a Black man who was driving in Texas, pulled over, and because he had a considerable amount of cash with him, the cash was confiscated. He was subsequently jailed and has been fighting this case. He was on our show and again will appear in court in April. But I'm just curious about any driving while Black stories that or any injustices in Texas. And I'm sure it would take the whole show if you really let it out. But can you kind of give us some insight about your knowledge on that?
Well, first of all, it wasn't just Texas. It was Mississippi. It was Arkansas. It was Louisiana. It was Alabama. it's Georgia, it's South Carolina, it's Virginia, it's North Carolina, it's California, and it's still happening. Nothing has changed. The lucky thing was they didn't shoot him and take his money. So in a lot of ways, he was lucky. All he lost was his money. And no longer are we just got to be concerned about the police. Look what happened to Ussery Joyner down at the Chevron station off of 980. It was 4 black kids. Wasn't the police trying to take his money? Right. And he got shot 22 times. Wasn't the police? If Black Lives Matter, they ain't going to matter to white people until they matter to us. Mm-hmm. So going back to Texas, look, there are too many incidents to mention where black people were driving through predominantly white areas, got tickets they didn't deserve, had their license compensated or taken in many cases. So we all know that. Quite frankly, if all they take is your license or give you a ticket, probably ought to consider yourself lucky. I've been to Mississippi twice in my life, and I'm not going back unless I get arrested.
Honorable Elihu Harris, that's one thing. Audience, I want you to look at this man, the mayor of Oakland, back in the 80s and 90s, specifically in the 90s when you were the mayor. They just did a disparity study, Dr. Ashley, because we're looking really good on time. Mm-hmm. But our audience, not only here in Oakland and the county and the state, but all across America needs to hear this next statement. They just did a disparity study in the city of Oakland. Out of $500 million that the mayor, Libby Schaaf, who's the mayor of Oakland, spends and helps to contract and supposed to be a city of diversity. They found out 0.32% of those dollars go to African Americans. Now I did the math. So out of $500 million, $500 million, they only give $1,400,000 approximately. What do you think about that, being the ex-mayor of the past mayor of Oakland? And how can we get our mayor, and this is 2 questions. When the Fisher family is trying to build a multi-billion-dollar baseball park at the Howard Terminal, which will displace longshoremen, 74% of the union is black and can afford, because they make from $100,000 to $400,000. But we have Ray Bobbitt and the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. Now, I'm going to say this last thing. I wish you were here right now, because you would have done the reverse of what this mayor has done. You would have helped out the first NFL owned by black people field. Now, I could be wrong, so I'm going to shut up and let you speak on that.
Well, first of all, look, this city was built on government money, and most of that money went to white firms. They got their own form of affirmative action. When Jerry Brown became mayor, he gave most of those money to white developers. One Asian white developer, Japanese, Phil Tagami. The others were the people at Signature Properties, and the other was John Protopopoulos. They made millions of dollars. When the Fox Oakland was renovated, Jerry Brown spent $80 million. He gave Phil Tagami an $8 million construction management. He didn't have to have no down payment. He didn't have to have any financing. He got $8 million. Phil Tagami has a 7,000 square foot house he just sold on the Piedmont-Oakland border. So I can go on and on. But when white folks want to give some money away to their folks, they find a way. They don't need to worry about Prop 209 or affirmative action, or why don't you have this, or why can't you do that? Because they got the political power. If we can't do it in Oakland, they sure ain't gonna be able to do it in Brentwood or Alamo or Walnut Creek. Look, we only get 1% of the contracts in Alameda County. We got 2 black supervisors. You tell me, do the math. 4 members of the Alameda County supervisors are minority. One of them, well, they're not anymore, but former Wilma Chair died, was an Asian, a Latino, and 2 blacks. We can't find a way to have inclusion, and it doesn't have anything to do with the law. If I call a white contractor and say, look, I like you, but I don't see diversity. I don't see anybody that looks like me. What you gonna do? I'll be right back. You know, we act stupid sometimes. We can't do it. Prop 209. You can do almost anything within law if people understand political reality and economics. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. You have to have the political will, and you have to be willing to hold people accountable when they don't do what they're expected to do, what they were put in office to do. People used to, I went down and was speaking to the West Oakland Senior Center. And I said, could you explain something to me? I said, when I was mayor, used to come down every week and kick my ass. Did you forget where City Hall is? Did you forget that there's a white woman down there now and you scared? Explain to me why you let Libby Schaaf get away with this. Libby Schaaf was not the student body president of Skyline. She was the head cheerleader. You know, I'm saying, if that's all she's doing, leading cheers for Oakland, look, Libby Schaaf's approval records in Oakland is worse than Donald Trump's. I'm just saying, you know.
You know, I'd like to say this. Where's she at with this Oakland Unified School District? She's not out there cheerleading for them kids.
Hey, you know what? She gonna say, well, I got Oakland Promise. And if you get into high school, if you get out of high school, if, you know, I mean, look, we got to talk about cradle to grave. When these children are born, what about preschool? What about literacy training? What about having money set aside that says, hey, you get to the end of the educational rainbow, here's what you get. I mean, the point is, you have to have not just talk, but you got to have a plan. When I was mayor, I had something called Oakland 2000. I wanted to have the best prepared kindergarten class in the history of Oakland. We went to mothers before they had children and said, look, here's a social security card, here's a library pass, here's books, here's hand-eye coordination toys for your child. Here's a preschool that you're going to be able to go to when your child is 3 years old. I'm just telling you, it doesn't take rocket science, but it does take commitment and not lip service. And I couldn't get people to fight with me for that. I don't know why. And so we take some responsibility when we let people do this to us. Look, there ought to be 1,000 people. The city council meets online, so you can't really get to the city council. But there's no reason 1,000 black folks can't go down there in front of City Hall and say, come out, wherever you are, you know, and or go up. Hey, when the folks were mad, they went up to Libby Schaaf's house up in Piedmont Pines. She's still crying about that. You know, I mean, like, I give you an example. This is a far-fetched example, but I think you'll understand. I was having lunch with this woman in City Center when I was mayor, and a brother just came in and sat down. I said, excuse me, brother, you see I'm having lunch with this lady, and you know, he said, look, you don't want to be bothered, don't come out in public. He said, ain't nobody made you run for mayor. You ran for mayor. This is what comes with the job. I said, let me go to you something to eat, brother. What you got? You know, because he was right. You know, if I'm a public servant, I can't be a public servant when it's convenient. I got to be a public servant until I'm out of office. He didn't knock on my door in my house. He saw me. He had something to say. He sat down and talked about it. So I'm just saying we should not be afraid to confront power. There's a movie out people should look at about Barbara Lee. So Barbara Lee speaks truth to power. We should all be speaking truth to power. It shouldn't just be Barbara Lee.
Audience, just before we go to break, I got to say this. Libby, and I'm not going to say mayor because this is a mayor right here. And I do recall everything you saying. You were out there on the front line, Honorable Elihu Harris. You were out there at meetings. Win, lose, or draw, you dealt with your job. I don't know where you are, Libby. We're going to send the Marines in to see if we can bring you back because you are MIA while this city is falling apart. And second, you need to support the African American Sports and Entertainment Group and hold your hired guns, directors of these departments, accountable for spending $500 million and only giving 0.32% to African American owned businesses. Shame, shame, shame. Dr. Ashley, please.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Donnie Glover of blackusa.news. And be sure to visit his YouTube page, YouTube Donnie Glover, for informative and insightful Black community news. Like us today on Facebook. Support Oakland's small business such as Soul Slice by Chef Carter Lewis. And don't forget to RSVP for Friday evening biscuit sandwiches and $5 ice cold beers, and also the gospel brunch, which is occurring this Sunday, February 13th, located at 5849 San Pablo Avenue in the heart of Oakland. Visit its website, www.soulslice.com, or call 510-879-7689. Support a local eatery in Oakland and check out their full service catering menu. Also, want to acknowledge our other sponsor, Magnolia Engineering and Construction. The mission is to become the premier building and engineering resource for large-scale commercial and transportation building projects in the Bay Area and beyond. The vision is to further the presence of Black women in the construction and engineering industry through key partnerships and building contracts in the municipal, government, and transportation sectors. And finally, to join our advertisement family, please send us an email to bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Back to you, Doug. I have to say that my phone is lighting up, Honorable Elihu Harris. The people are listening. And some of them are unable to comment, but I'm sure I'll be filtering through text messages for a while. So thank you for lighting it up.
Probably mad.
Well, let me say this. First off, let's welcome back Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire, the 46th mayor of Oakland, California, when it was the city of diversity.
It was Chocolate City.
It was.
Hey, but let me say this though. You know, one of the things we talk about Black history, we got to also remember one brother who's still alive and one brother who's gone. Bobby Seale made history when he ran for mayor in 1973. He didn't win, but he showed that there could be a Black mayor, and more importantly, a mayor more progressive. The Republicans were running Oakland in 1973. John Redding owned Red's Tamales and lived off of Havens Court in East Oakland. By 1977, Lionel Wilson became the first Black mayor because of Bobby Seale and Elaine Brown running 4 years earlier. So let's have political courage. Remember, people paved the path and built bridges. I didn't become mayor without Lionel Wilson. Lionel Wilson didn't become mayor without Bobby Seale. And Ron Dellum didn't become Black mayor without all of that happening prior to him being. So we're going to have Black leadership. Let's not forget Black history, because quite frankly, we're all building on the legacy of our founders and our fathers and mothers.
Before I get into this next question, you know, you and Congresswoman Barbara Lee give the what was the name of it again? It's at the tip of my tongue.
Martin Luther King Freedom Center?
Yes. Audience, let me be clear. We are asleep. My mother wrote a letter, and you know my mother very well.
Yes. Planning commissioner, the planning commissioner, the president and owner of Total Heights. No, I don't know her.
My mother wrote a powerful letter to the Democratic Party, and we read it on the show. When I get a chance, I'm going to make a copy of it and send it to you so you can read it. Now, I'm bringing this up to our audience. We are not holding our politicians accountable. There's over $70 million in the Oakland Promise. How much of that money is going to Black and brown kids, if any has gone? And it's held, the person held by Mayor Libby Schaaf. Second, I am disheartened that she only has 11 months left to finish destroying the city, but I'm happy that she's only got 11 months left to finish destroying the city. Honorable Elihu Harris, what are your thoughts on the Oakland Unified School District and the issues of school closure presently in Oakland and the impact on communities of color and students' socialization? Thank you, sir.
I think, first of all, nothing is simple. And you're not going to solve a complicated problem without a comprehensive solution. And the Oakland Unified School District got tremendous budget problems. And part of those budget problems is the people vote with their feet and they're leaving the school district. Like I said before, we've gone from 60,000 students in the Oakland Unified School District in the 90s to 36,000 today. You need to have a strategic plan. How are you going to bring the students back? How are you going to improve the quality of education? Look, half the people, more than half, and I'm not saying they don't have good reason in many cases, 80% of the people who work at Oakland, 90% of the firefighters at Oakland, they don't live in Oakland. You know, we got to have people who are living in our community, who the students don't just see between 9 and 3. You know, used to be people living next door to the teacher, that they knew the librarian. You know, it takes a village. So we've got to go back and reestablish a sense of community. Yeah, we want neighborhood schools, but we got to start going to the school. You can't just send your kids to school. You got to go there with them. If you half these kids, people don't even know who their teacher is. If they know where the school is because they drop the kids off or they pass by it on the way to the barbecue stand. You got to go in the school. You have to understand, my child doesn't have homework. My child doesn't know the ABCs. My child can't read. What's going on? You have to have accountability, not just the mayor. You know, the mayor is not the only elected official. She's not the only public servant in the city of Oakland. These people are making grand theft money in many cases. And for them, it's just a job. I thought public service was a calling. If you're not going to be a servant leader, get out the way. So I just suggest the schools, closure is an issue, but you can't just say open the schools. What's going to happen when they're open and nothing's going on inside? You know, I don't need a school building. I need a place of learning. And if we don't focus on the schools as a place where the next generation is being trained to lead, to live, to prosper, who cares? We get mad because they close the school. We don't care when it's open, what's going on behind closed doors. So I care about schools. I used to go to school and read to the kids. I went to every elementary school, middle school in Oakland. You know why? Because I wanted people not to tell me what was going on in that school. I wanted to see it for myself. People said, what's going on at Garfield? What's going on at Skyline? What's going on at Castlemont? I could tell them I at least had been there. I talked to the student. I went to a class in Castlemont. This teacher happened to be white, so this is not a racist comment. He's sitting there reading damn newspaper while the kids are throwing stuff at each other, yelling and screaming. And he said, as long as they ain't throwing nothing to me, I'm good. You know, what is that about? If you can't manage your classroom, go somewhere where you either can manage it or retire. I'm just saying, we got to have accountability. That's the responsibility for the parents and the kids, accountability for the teachers, the administrators, the school board. Everybody got a role to play. If you're not doing your part, you're part of the problem.
Audience, I hope you heard that. This is from one of the, if not the best mayor in the entire country. We can't just continue to blame Mayor Libby, even though she has a big piece of the thing. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to go up and check on our children, see why they don't have homework. So thank you for pointing that out, Honorable Elihu Harris. Dr. Ashley?
Yes, and since we have an opportunity for just a follow-up question about accountability, I also wanted to bring you up to speed about one of our listeners who reached out to us. Again, another resident of Texas, unfortunately, whose child is being bullied by their teacher. And again, the spirit of the bullying, which shouldn't be taking place in the first place from a teacher to a student, but is racially motivated. And Mayor Elihu Harris, I'm just curious, you know, can you kind of shed some light on, I know you talked about sundown towns, and we know there's a history of racism, but what can parents do that may be where their child is experiencing bullying at the hands of a teacher?
Lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly there are Black lawyers in Texas civil rights. It can be federal, doesn't have to be a Texas lawsuit. Document the bullying, have somebody, other student collaborated. Look at the statistics. If only Black kids are getting suspended, if only Black kids are being bullied, hey, there's something going on here that demands further explanation. And here's the other thing, we used to not have all learning take place in schools. I remember during the civil rights movement, they had freedom schools. They went to the churches. They opened up the churches before and or during and or after school. And if you couldn't get the education you needed in the school, you go down to the church. We don't need to have one day a week institutions. Churches, they got buildings. Some of them got better buildings than the school. Use that as a learning place. Get some of the retired teachers to come in and teach after school. If the learning is not taking place in the schoolhouse, make that demand. But if it's not taking place and it's still not being met, hey, there's other ways to get things done. So I'm just suggesting that in Texas, yes, what you do is you make the demands, you file the lawsuits, you recall somebody from the school board, you go down there and find out what's going on, and you sit in the classroom if necessary. There's no reason. Look, people ain't got no job, but you are well fed. Go down and sit in the classroom. And if they're not, demand the principal, they're not going to do that in front of a responsible parent who got credibility. I'm sitting there and I'm watching what's going on. So if I'm seeing you bully the child, I got notes. If I ain't got any credibility, then we got a whole bigger problem. So you're going to treat children with respect, and they're going to treat you with respect. Look, you can't have students calling teachers out their name. And we know that happens. We know parents are going down there saying, you can't tell my child nothing. Okay, why don't you keep your child at home and they can be as ignorant as you are? Or you say, look, you respect the teacher and the teacher will respect you. And you pay attention in class and you're not respecting the teacher. Teacher, you don't need to talk to my child. Call me and let's see if it happens again. Hey, look, let me tell you, my mom was down to school so much, they thought she was the teacher. You got to go down to these schools and see what's going on. And if this particular person in Texas, take turns. You ain't got to go down there every day. I'll be down there Monday morning. You go Monday afternoon. You sit in that classroom, your day off, your lunch hour, and say, let me see what's going on here. You say to the kid, how come they acting nice when I'm here? You don't have classroom management? I didn't hear anybody yelling, stomping around, acting the fool when I was here. So what's going on? Why are they doing it when I leave? There's all kinds of things people can do. First of all, let's be straight. Let's not cry wolf. It may not be a problem. Sometimes these kids are acting up. Kids beating up another kid. It ain't your teacher that's the bully. It's your child that's a bully. Cease and desist your child's abhorrent behavior. We got to have accountability, and that includes parent accountability. So I don't know what's going on in Texas, and I can't say one way or the other, right or wrong, but I can say, let's see what's going on. Let's go down. Let's talk. Let's have a rational mind. Let's listen to the teacher. Let's see if the teacher's following the school policies and procedures. Maybe the teacher's right and the policy procedures are wrong. I don't know. But you got to have accountability. And you can't do it by sitting at home, calling or yelling or being mad. Direct action, still the only thing you can do to get accountability. So I just say, I hope that what's going on in Texas, what's going on in Oakland will be corrected, but only when we pay attention and we demand accountability through our own information, not I heard it through the grapevine.
Dr. Isaac, before you ask the next question, Honorable Elihu Harris, I hope that you become a candidate, and I will rally as many people as I can, because this is the type of mayoring that we need going on in the city of Oakland. Right. It's not all the teachers' fault. It's not all the parents' fault. It's not all the children's fault. It's a combined effort here. Absolutely. So thank you.
Hey, look, let me say something. That the whole issue is that we have got to really understand all the issues that are going on in our community that are keeping each and every one of us, including our children, from maximizing our human potential. I mean, I thought that's why we're all here, to maximize our human potential. We only going to be here so long. And when we leave, what is our legacy? Is it our children? Is it Martin Luther King? I don't know what it is, but you ought to be able to say, here's what I did during my watch. Here's what I contributed to solving the problem. And I just think every one of us has that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ashley, please.
Oh, one last thing.
Yeah.
I'm not running for office. I'm running from office.
Well, we need to send your manual when you make it up down to the current mayor. Maybe she can clean up some of this mess.
Hey, we have a mayoral election this year. There are 7 Black candidates who between them ain't going to get elected. And these are my friends, and I love them. I like them. I ain't mad at none of them. But we don't have that luxury with 23% of the population. So we need to, as a community, come together, interview all these people who want to put themselves up as the leader. I don't care if they're black, white, or indifferent, and say, what are you going to do if you get elected? Why are you running? You know, and how do we hold you accountable? What are your promises? What is your campaign? What is your agenda? And if you don't do those things, what do we do about it?
Before you go, Doctor, I have to say that we are talking with the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce, and we want to get some of these candidates on the show to do a candidate forum. And I would be truly honored if you can ask these questions, because what better way to get a better mayor by having a previous successful mayor interview those either wanting to be mayor or wanting the satisfaction of saying, hey, I ran for mayor, I'm mayor, and having that in their portfolio.
Well, let me say this. You have 3 members of the city council who are running, okay? So it'll take rocket science to say, okay, now, one of them only been on the city council a little over a year. The others have both been on about 3 years. So part of it is, okay, so you've been on the city council for 3 years. What have you done in the last 3 years that both have prepared you and demonstrated why you ought to be the mayor? And it can't be because I'm better than Libby Schaaf. It's got to be because here's programs that I have prepared. Here's efforts that I made, even though they failed because the mayor blocked them. If I'm elected mayor, I will make sure these things happen. Here's how I'm going to hold the city administrator and the city departments accountable for not cleaning up the streets. How much, how you going to pay all these taxes and you can't get anybody in public works to clean up the illegal dump site, to wipe the graffiti off the parks? I keep using the word accountability. And I want to know, how will you make sure that we get accountability? How will you make sure that things are going to change, that the homeless are going to be housed? How you going to make sure that the crime problem goes down, and not just with police brutality? It's all kind of questions. You don't need me to ask the questions. You just need to listen to the answers.
Dr. Ashley, please. I'm trying to get my composure. Honorable Elihu Harris, I love having you on this show because you don't hold no punches. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate the opportunity. And you're Dr. Ashley. Look, thank you we don't have a daily newspaper in the city of Oakland anymore. We don't have lines of communication that are consistent and daily. So when you come on the air, whatever you're talking about is all your audience will probably know about the issue that is being raised. They may have heard that the schools are being closed, but they don't know why. They don't know when. They don't know anything other than why they closing the schools. Well, okay, let's have a conversation about that. And also, not just talk about the problem, what are the alternatives? What do we want other than we don't want the schools closed? I mean, I can't tell you the time they have people say, hey, we want you to solve a problem. We don't care how you do it. Just do it. Well, I didn't come to office with, unlimited wealth. I didn't come to office with magic powers. So what is it we can do together to solve the problem? If people say, look, we don't want to close the school, but we're willing to have parent volunteers. We're willing to go to the churches and get seniors to come down here. And we don't need police anymore. We don't need guards. We're going to have parents out here on the schoolyard making sure the kids are safe. If kids If parents got to be scared of their own kids, nobody else gonna solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Police can't solve that problem. You running from your own kids? Lord have mercy. Hey, look, I'm just saying there are things people can do. And I'm not saying what those things are. We certainly ought to be willing to talk about some of those things and say, are we willing to do this as an alternative to closing the school? You know, and if we are, then hey, we have a solution. Don't close my school because we're going to do this. My mama's going to come down here and teach third grade. She used to be a teacher. She retired. She'll come down once a week. Or she's a reading specialist. She'll work with these kids who can't read at third grade level and give them literacy skills. You know, it's got to be answers. It can't just be recrimination and pointing the fingers of blame.
Dr. Ashley, please go ahead.
Wise words, wise words. Can you share with our audience about your role with the Barbara Lee and Elihu Harris lecture series? And just tell us more about what you're doing and the ideas that are being, produced from that effort.
We, in 1995, Barbara and I started the Martin Luther King Freedom Center. And we did it, again, based on building on the foundation of our elders. There were senior East Oakland Black residents who had a parade every year because they wanted to make sure that we commemorated the birthday of Martin Luther King. And like I said before, they started at East Mile Mall, went toward the airport, right down 73rd, became Hegenberger, till they got to what was then San Leandro Bay. Mm-hmm. And so that ultimately evolved into the Martin Luther King Freedom Center. They first used to meet at a closed restaurant on San Leandro Bay along the Martin Luther King Regional Park. And then about 10, 11 years ago, we worked with those kids like in the summer on leadership, all kind of things. And then about 11, 12 years ago, we relocated, when I was Chancellor at Peralta, we relocated to Merritt College. And that's where they're still housed. And they work with Oakland High School students. Now they're statewide. They're working with kids. And quite frankly, there's some national programs. They're working with young people in Alabama. They're working with young people up in Yolo County and Sacramento County. They're working with young people in San Jose. The point about it is they're trying to train a generation of leadership. And the goal is using Martin Luther King's teachings in civic engagement and conflict resolution to teach leadership. So they went out and registered people to vote. They went door to door and registered people to vote and did voter education. They're giving young people the ability to use the spoken word. If you talk to these young people, they're articulate. They can tell you why they're in school, what they want to do when they get out of school, and how they're going to make their community better. And they're Black and Latino and a few Asian students, mostly Black and Latino, because those are the students who are having the greatest issues in maximizing their potential. And when you talk to the young people, you'll be inspired. You really will. And then the lecture series, we wanted to have these civil rights icons, many of whom were dying. And we've had everybody from John Lewis, Andy Young. We've had over 30. Some of them were ministers in the movement. Just you name it. We had Martin Luther King's lawyer come and speak to us. We've had members of Congress, Black members of Congress, like they all of a sudden Georgia, John Lewis come and speak to us. So we wanted to make sure, and many of these we've had obviously put on tape so that you can go to the website and listen to these words, direct words, talking about the issues, talking about their experience in the civil rights movement, talking about their relationship with Dr. King. So we can learn from history, and that's why we want to do the lecture series. We're now trying to get a number of speakers in. We're looking at Perry Belafonte. We're looking at the I can't all of a sudden, my mind, you get old, so you can't remember. But what's the name of the brother, the minister from North Carolina, the Poor People's Campaign? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I his name's that tip of my tongue.
Anyway, we're trying to get people like that who are current. We've had Freddie Haynes out of Dallas, and Freddie, I went to Freddie Haynes' church when I was in Dallas, and he said something that I never forgot. And he said, if you're not at the table, you will be on the menu. And I never forgot that. So we had people like Freddie come and speak to our community, a more contemporary, younger leader. So all I'm telling you is we want to make sure that we're bringing people who are relevant to the past and relevant to the present and relevant to the future. So the young people and older people, lest we forget, will understand that this is a continuing journey. It didn't start with us and it won't end with us. So we have to do our part as a link in that history to make sure that we thank those who sacrificed and died so that we would have a better life, so that our children and generations yet unborn will benefit from our sacrifice, our commitment, and our journey. So anyway, that's it.
But before you ask that question, Dr.
James Barber, the word out, Reverend Barber.
Reverend Barber,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say this. I'd like to say this emphatically. Audience, our civil rights icon. And yes, Honorable Elihu Harris, you are an icon. You are an icon. I remember when, because I've been to quite a few of your lectures, and what I admired about you and Congresswoman Barbara Lee is that you brought the woman who was ridiculed when the Clarence Thomas situation came up. Anita Hill. I was there at that lecture. And let me tell you something. I believe her.
Yeah, I believe it too.
I'll tell you something. That woman was powerful. I sat up there. I believe, and she lucky I wasn't a part of that crew.
Right.
Excuse me, his black butt wouldn't have been sitting on that thing if I was judging it. Because I believe.
Hey, look, not just that. You look what he's done. He has been harder on black folks than any of the white people on the Supreme Court. When you got a black person that hates other black people, and he does it by his behavior, by his language. Look, even he's conservative. He ain't speaking at black churches. He's not out talking to the NAACP or explaining why his positions are consistent with fairness, justice, and equality. He has, and I'm not saying because he's married to a white woman, I'm saying because I think in my mind and in everything I see, hates black people. And he wishes he wasn't black. When a guy who got into Yale Law School on affirmative action votes against affirmative action, how is that not the height of hypocrisy? Turn in your law degree. You don't deserve it either. I'm just saying. I just don't understand. Just don't understand. Clarence,
Audience, only on the Black Business Roundtable will you get the real news by this icon, Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire. Dr. Ashley, please.
Absolutely. Honorable Elihu Harris, we want to give you the last word, but first, before we do, we want to give our younger listeners a sense of your highlight reel. So I have the privilege of reminding our listeners of some of the things you did under your tenure. Again, here, spearheaded the creation of the Chabot Science Center, responsible as mayor of Oakland for the return of the Raiders in 1995, also pushed and caused the reconstruction of Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Arena. Again, we're the Warriors, we know, won their titles. And we at the Black Business Roundtable, we know that that's an abbreviated list of your contributions, but just wanted to highlight you as it is Black History Month, living Black history. So we want to give you the opportunity to share some last remarks with us and our audience.
Well, I think it's not so much about accomplishments as it is, again, about being a servant leader. Most of us, and I assume true about the two of you as well, you're not doing this show because you're making a whole lot of dough. You're doing it because we need to hear it. That's servant leadership. We need servant leaders. People who are doing it because it's the right thing to do. And I wanted to become mayor, not because I wanted to have a title. I did it because I wanted to be able to use resources to improve the quality of life, not just for Black people, obviously, but in our community. And we all benefit from that. So the last thing I'm saying is this. Yeah, what I wanted to do, and I don't think people recognize things that I did that I thought were important, like having Project Second Chance, having reading. I had a summer reading camp. So all the little kids, can go to the library and learn how to read. We started programs like Performing Arts Day Camp, so that kids could learn and be able to learn instruments and be able to work their art, fine arts, acting, whatever it might be. It's the little things. We want to make sure that our parks are open for the kids. There'd be safe places for them to be able to play. So they didn't have to sit in the yard all day or play in the street. They could go somewhere. There'd be recreation leaders. These parks are closed. We used to have recreation leaders at every elementary school, so you can at least play in the yard after school till your parents got off work. It's just little things that we ought to be doing. We cleaned up all the creeks. We'd have in the community, not the city workers. It was a creek cleanup day. We got rid of all the illegal dump sites. We said that in the city of Oakland, all of the graffiti will be removed within 24 hours of identification. It's little things that you do because every day it adds up. So if you let the graffiti build up, people get used to it and say, oh, that's how it looks in East Oakland. If you let the illegal dump sites or the little garbage cans fill up, nobody's emptying the garbage cans down International Boulevard. We pay people to do it. They're sitting at home talking about, the COVID. They're doing everything else, but they can't come to work. I'm sorry. I'm saying that everybody's got to do their part. And if people got mad because I called it out, I'm sorry. But I can't sit there and say, hey, y'all are struggling. We got people who are working for y'all, but hey, they say it's too hard. They got something else to do today. And they said maybe next week. I'm just saying everybody got to do their part. People shouldn't be littering in the street because they think they got a city worker to pick it up. People shouldn't be, shooting up and down the highway because they got extra bullets or they mad because somebody got in front of them in traffic. We got probably 30 predators in Oakland who are responsible for almost all the killings.
Right.
Not snitching on people is the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. If your child is serious, it's only a matter of time before he kill you. We got to have accountability. And I'm just saying, when we killing each other, and we got to be more afraid of each other than we do the police, something is terribly wrong in our community. So I'm not here to preach, but I am to say, hey, I've seen the enemy and he is us. And if we aren't part of the solution, then we're going to get what we get. And we can blame white folks. We can blame Donald Trump. It's not going to change a thing. I'm done.
Well, on that outstanding note, audience, let me be perfectly clear. Dr. Ashley, give me 30 seconds.
Please.
We need politicians to be trained by men like Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire, who has definitely articulated it's not just one person's problem, it's all of our problems. And until we get off of our butts, all of us, and do something about it, then we are going to have a continuous problem. Dr. Ashley, would you like to say anything before we close it out and say goodbye to our outstanding guest speaker, 46th mayor for the city of Oakland, and for a man who I know personally made a difference when he was mayor. All the stuff that he talked about, community policing, increasing cleanliness in our city, getting graffiti off, because if it looked like a crack house, it's a crack house.
Right.
Dr. Ashley?
Well, I just want to thank you, Honorable Elihu Harris, for your candor. Again, your wise comments. But what I find as an Oakland native who loves the city but has relocated to Southern California, anytime there's a conversation about what we can do within the community and holding ourselves accountable is when sometimes we hear that response of, don't you talk about my baby, or other people do this. And so sometimes the conversation stops at Black Lives Matters about outsiders impacting the community, but water can't get into a strong ship. And so I really appreciate your call and challenge for all of us to do our parts to have pride again for our communities and for the beautiful city of Oakland. So
and because this is a business roundtable, I just want to say one more thing. And I say always one more thing. Hey, we got to go back into business. I'm not a guy who really let me just put it straight up. There are 2 Black funeral homes left in, there are only 4 in the Bay Area. We don't own gas stations. I remember when all the liquor stores in East Oakland were owned by Black folks. There used to be Black pharmacies in Oakland. We got to get back to starting businesses. They're not easy. We got to go back to supporting Black businesses. I can tell you Black taxi cab owners, I can go all up and down and tell you there were very few things in terms of services, Black contractors. I grew up, I never saw a white contractor. I never saw a white plumber, painter, electrician growing up. Because you know what? Everybody that did work for my father's business was Black. And it wasn't because he didn't like white people. It's because he had people he knew who were Black, who gave him a fair price and did a good job. So all I'm saying is sometimes we don't have to do something new. We got to do something old. I'm done.
On that note, Honorable Elihu Harris, you are always welcome on this show. And audience, once again, we humbly ask Honorable Elihu Harris to come back. This was great of you to make time, especially this month, Black History Month, because our Black people need to say the Black History Month every month the way we are declining in this country. And thank you for coming on the show, and we look forward to having you back, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. And again, thank both of you for your service. Hey, and Dr. Ashley, I'm sorry we lost you to Southern California, but this is still home.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I don't care how far you move. If you're from Oakland, it follows you wherever you go.
You're not lying, Honorable Elihu. Yes, it does.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you again, Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire, the 46th mayor for the city of Oakland and a fighter for civil rights. Dr. Ashley, can you close us out? I'm still grieving a little bit. Thank you, Honorable Elihu Harris.
No problem. We also want to close this segment by just a brief moment in Black history. Onesimus, it's a name that we don't hear when we look at the history of vaccinations, but in the U.S., we owe a debt of gratitude to an African slave named Onesimus, or African man who was enslaved. Let me clarify that. And again, there's a video that just talks about a traditional African inoculation technique that saved countless lives from smallpox and also became the foundation for vaccines as we know them today. So again, the political activist who's bringing a spotlight to this is Bart Thurston. Want to thank our guests. Again, Honorable Elihu Harris, Esquire. Also want to thank Janani Ramachandran, our grassroots fighter of human rights. A special acknowledgement and thank you to Donnie Glover. Thank you for this platform where we can talk about Black business as well as how to save our communities. Listeners, be sure to tune in to more of our programming. Chap and Friends on Mondays, Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesdays, Sister Biz with Nicole and Tamara on Wednesdays, Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Fridays, and also just looking at the YouTube page, there's new changes coming to the programming, so stay tuned. Also, in Black USA, 60 Minutes in Black USA with Michael Haney as well. Thank you, audience, once again for tuning in. And we want to invite you to take care of yourselves and your mental and physical health. Again, thinking of Chef Carter, as well as Doug, as your sister. Again, listeners, together we can listen, learn, and share because I know you care. This is Dr. Ashley and Doug Blacksher of the Black Business Roundtable. God bless and good night.